Hello and happy Monday, my friends. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World and a brand new week here at Prime Sports World. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm David Huppin. Right there is the CEO of Prime Sports World, rocking the shades for the third show in a row. Izzy Rivera. Welcome to the show, my friend. Happy Monday. How are you?
I think I might make this a staple. Feel like the Terminator. Hasta la vista, baby.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. On today's episode of the show, we're going to give you our full team grades for every team in the National Football League as the 2024 NFL Draft is now in the books. What do you think about the draft as a whole?
You know what? I thought it was, obviously we all saw it was a record-breaking draft. I think it was
700,000 people in Detroit at various times over the weekend watched the NFL draft. 700,000 people.
It was crazy. I mean,
Detroit
big
showed
ups to
out.
all the offensive players.
Yeah,
big ups to all the offensive players that went in the first round. And I knew the second day would get dominated by all the defensive players that were pretty much left on the board. This draft was deep. I mean, when it comes to there's some offensive linemen that in any other draft they probably would have got picked in the first round, where they went in the second round.
Jackson Powers Johnson was like a second round pick.
Yeah, Jackson Powers and Zach Frazier.
Yeah, both those guys, both in the same position.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really about position scarcity, really. But, like, share, subscribe to the podcast. We're going to talk about every single team and how we think they did on the draft when it comes to the National Football League. But real quick, before we get into that, I just want to give our thoughts and prayers out to Tank Dell. Was shot over the weekend in an armed robbery situation. Seems to be doing well. Can't catch a break there. I think he tore his ACL towards the end of last season or Achilles. I can't remember which one it was. And then it has this unfortunate situation off the field, and you just hate to see it, right?
I think it was like a group. I think he was like at a party or something like that. And there was like a group of 10. So prayers to all of them. They all pull through. But he's out. I think he's out of the hospital.
He should be fine. But just
but it's definitely a scary situation, especially one as a human, but definitely. I mean, we don't want to see a young guy's career cut short. We remember Brian Robinson
shot twice, 2 years ago,
and he made a miraculous comeback for Washington. So
let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they had 2 first-round picks in this upcoming draft. They took Maserati Marv, and they took Darius Robinson. They addressed a bunch of their needs in the later picks. If you're just looking at what the Arizona Cardinals did here with a lot of picks in this year's draft, including 4 picks in the third round, how do you think, if you had to give them a grade, how do you think Arizona did? They did address a lot of their needs going into the draft. Their major needs were wide receiver, cornerback, edge, running back, interior offensive lineman, and edge. They did a good job addressing a lot of these needs. I see a cornerback. I see an edge. I see a running back. I see an interior offensive lineman.
They had an excellent draft. They had a very good draft. They're actually, I'm actually working on something now. I was doing it. That's why we kind of started a little late. If I finish it, I'll drop the link. I posted after the show, but they were actually one of my winners of the draft. They drafted what some believe to be the best offensive player in the draft, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Outside of obviously Caleb Williams is the generational talent, number 1 overall pick, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably most likely depending on his numbers. I mean, he's gonna get a lot of votes depending on the season for offensive rookie of the year. And then in the second, and Darius Robinson edge. He's a hell of an edge. I mean, he was moving up draft boards.
He probably is going to play tackle or like some sort of. He'll probably play in the interior of the NFL. But
he's a big boy. But it's the 5 picks in the second day that really did it for me. That give them an A because they addressed all their needs. Obviously, Max Melton, Elijah Jones from Boston College. I think three of those guys, especially Max Melton, Trey Benson, and Elijah Jones, all of those guys, I think are going to make immediate impacts next season, hopefully, for this team. And those are needs that they had. Defensive backfield, they needed another running back. James Conner is, we saw when he went down, they kind of struggled a little bit last season to find a running back that was worth anything. Trey Benson's probably if not the best, one of the best running backs in this draft class. So I mean, I think this was a great draft for Arizona. So I gotta give them an A.
Yeah, I'm gonna go A too. I like what they especially did in the first, like basically in theory, right? They picked up 7 starters in this draft. I mean, because in every pick in your first 3 rounds should be a starter quality player, and like they had a team that had a lot of needs, and they did a good job addressing a majority of those needs. Yeah, this is probably an A- draft for me for Arizona. I like what they did here, and they benefited by the fact that 3 quarterbacks went with the first 3 picks. So Marvin Harrison Jr. just fell in their lap, and they didn't bite they didn't feed into the we could trade this pick away. Like, no, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is the guy you want and you think he's a generational type talent, take him. Like, future draft capital is nice, but as TJ always like to talk about, you have to hit on those picks. Marvin Harrison should be a surefire borderline.
And you said and you mentioned it last season on most of the season when Kyrie, when Kyler Murray came back, and I kept saying, well, we might as well shut it down for him. They're not going anywhere. And you kept saying, well, he's actually playing for his job for next season. And he actually did a good job, I think, in the second half of the season, showing that he's still a very good quality starter. And all you got to do is just make tweaks to this offense. I think they did. So.
To the Atlanta Falcons, who are interesting case. Obviously, they took Michael Penix Jr. First with the 8th overall pick. They followed it up with a defensive lineman, an edge, another defensive lineman, which they definitely needed. Linebacker, running back, wide receiver, and then defensive interior with Zion Luge from Georgia. Their major needs heading into this draft were as followed. Hold on a second. I will get into it.
It was what
edge, cornerback, defensive tackle, safety, and corner, and then obviously quarterback as well. I think this all hinges on, like, when you talk about draft day grade, the Michael Penix Jr. pick is just still so head scratching. Like, I don't quite understand that pick, and like they may have knocked it out of the park with all of their other picks, but this is a team that you sort of needs to be prepared to win now. You pay Kirk Cousins all the money to like be the guy who's going to be like, I don't understand that pick. And the rest of their draft is just kind of hinged on his, I don't know. This is like a C for me. I don't know.
It's definitely a C. They're actually one of my losers of the draft. And mostly is because of Michael Penix Jr., not because of Michael Penix Jr., the talent. It's just the fact that Michael Penix Jr. is 23 years old. He's ready to play, right?
I think he's 24.
Yeah, well, let me look at it. When I saw it, he was still 23.
Oh yeah, maybe. But
yeah, he might just be about to turn 24, David. So he's ready to go right now.
Yeah, his birthday is a week from today, or a week from tomorrow.
So he's about to be 24.
Yeah.
So
like,
look,
he can't afford to sit for 3 seasons. He's going to be 27 years old.
Yeah.
Like, this is like
it's like he's ready. Like I said, he's ready to go right now. The fact that you're gonna have him, the fact that it's the like Kirk Cousins is like looking over his shoulder now. You just paid him $100 million, and I think that kind of sucks for him. And Michael Penn, and their excuse was they didn't want to be in quarterback purgatory just in case Kirk Cousins gets hurt and whatever the case is. They were looking to the future. But Michael Penix Jr. is not going to start for another 2-3 years, especially sitting behind Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins was playing very well last season before the injury. If he comes back just like that,
I mean, if you're gonna take him, you could have traded back. I'm not guaranteed. Like, I don't know what the trade market was for that pick, that 8th overall pick, but like, if you were gonna take him, you could have traded back with a numerous amount of teams and still gotten him later in the first round. It's just such a head scratching decision. And then you gave up a 3rd round pick in order to move up to take the defensive tackle. That felt like a reach too. He's really probably not a 2nd round pick there. The kid from Clemson.
Probably a 3rd round pick when Johnny Newton was still there. They could have got Newton.
Yeah.
And then I'm not gonna bash Braylon Trice. But he does. I mean, he was listed at 245. I think that's kind of a lie because he usually plays at 275. He's a big boy playing edge, and he's got short arms. And I think a guy like Adisa Isaac probably would have been a better pick than Braylon Trice. I had him as a higher grade at that time. So they had a few reaches. I do like Brandon Dorius. out of Oregon. I think he's a nice player, especially at 4 overall. JD Bertrand, I'm a big Notre Dame fan, so I mean, I like any pick that went out of Notre Dame. I think their defense was really good last season, despite a few lapses in some games. But yeah, I'm going to give this a C, and it's just all hinging on the Michael Penix Jr. stuff. Not because he's not a talented quarterback, just with the fact of the need. They could have went and got Dallas Turner. They could have went and got Byron Murphy. They could have went and got anybody. They could have went and got another wide receiver in Rome Odunze. They could have went and got Brock Bowers because for the fact that you say it all the time that they're tied into what the hell's his name out of Florida. Kyle Pitts has just kind of been meh since he's gotten to the league, and Brock Bowers is.
There were more win now decisions that the Atlanta Falcons could have made, and they chose not to.
Offensive line,
yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. To the Baltimore Ravens, who have notoriously drafted well, and this is another clinic by the Baltimore Ravens. Trading back or taking Nate Wiggins. Many people had him as a much higher prospect than where they got him in the first round. Then you get a tackle in Roger Rosengard out of Washington, who also was probably graded higher than when they got him. You got DJ Tampa at Iowa State in the 4th round. Many people had him as like a fringe first round pick. This is one of those, like the Ravens, just whatever reason, they always seem to hit a slam dunk when it comes to the NFL draft.
This is definitely like a A- B+ draft for them. I would actually give it an A- just because the fact Nate Wiggins was probably slated to go higher than 30. Roger Rosengarten, and he's one of the guys that I talked about at the beginning of the show. There are 4 guys that are tackles, especially not including Jackson Powers Johnson and Zach Fletcher, who are interior offensive linemen, that any year in any other draft probably would have been in a first round picks. We're talking about Patrick Paul, Roger Rosengarten, Blake Fisher. Those guys probably would have been first round picks in any other draft, but that's how deep the offensive line draft class was. They were able to get a Roger Rosengarten. They were able to get a Adisa Isaac, who is a hell of a player out of Penn State. Devontae Walker, he's another good player. I mean, out of North Carolina. I mean, he's a big wide receiver. And then getting TJ Tampa in the 4th round, that is an absolute steal, my guy. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, TJ Tampa and Nate Wiggins should be and Adisa Isaac will all be playing next year roles at some sort of capacity for that defense in Baltimore. It's incredible that they're able to just do this on draft days. I gotta give it an A.
I'm going A for Baltimore Ravens too. Their major needs when they went into this draft: interior offensive lineman, offensive tackle, edge, wide receiver, and safety. And as you see from this graphic, they addressed every single one of those needs in this draft. So Ravens constantly, they're just the class when it comes to drafting in the NFL. They always seem to knock it out of the park. To the Buffalo Bills, who traded back twice in the first round, picked up some extra picks. They ended up getting Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. And then also in the second round, they got Cole Bishop. Their 2 biggest needs, really, when it comes to this year in the draft, their needs going into this were as, hold on a second.
It had to be wide receiver, safety.
Wide receiver, edge, defensive tackle, safety, and then running back. And as you see on the graphic there, I mean, they addressed all of those needs. They got some good players. They also got Travis Clayton, that is a mammoth human being who's going to play guard in the NFL. Played rugby internationally, I think in Australia or in the UK. I think it was in the UK.
I think it had to be. I think it was the UK. I think the Australian guy got picked by Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so Travis Clayton is a massive human being. I think he's like 6'6", like 335 pounds, but he runs like a 4.94 in the 40-yard dash. Like, I mean, their first 2 picks are guys that should be guys that start for them and be productive.
Day 1 starters.
Yeah, and Ray Davis brought him back out of corner. I mean, they basically addressed all the needs that they had. I mean, what do you think about Buffalo here?
I actually like what Buffalo did. I did criticize them a little bit. When we came back on and did a recap after the first round, I was like, well, they traded back a couple, and they let Kansas City get a wide receiver, and they could have got Xavier Leggett at 33, but Keon Coleman is a hell of a football player. He's great at contested catches. He's a big physical guy. That's the only knock on him, right? I think he just doesn't get a lot of separation. And that may be a problem at the next level. But, I think when you got a quarterback like Josh Josh Allen, that can, pinpoint balls to you at the highest point and has great accuracy. He's going to feed it to Keon Coleman a lot. I think Keon Coleman, and then Cole Bishop is a hell of a safety. I mean, he's a strong tackler, big safety. He's got great ball skills, and I really like Dwayne Carter out of Duke. I think he's going to be a hell of a defensive tackle for them. He's got quick, explosive. He's explosive out of the point of attack. Out of his stance. I think he's got great speeds, great size. And then Ray Davis, I've seen a lot of him out of Kentucky. He's more of a third down back, more of a guy that is probably going to be in passing situations. He's a smaller back. I think Buffalo did well. I'm gonna give it a B for Buffalo. I think Buffalo had a nice, they filled some needs that they had. So
I'll also go B for the Buffalo Bills. I think getting the extra, because the team that's in the cap situation that they're in, I mean, trading back out of the first round and picking up extra draft picks, I think that's just smart football roster construction. I will be interested to see what Travis Clayton ends up being in the National Football League. If he's somebody that they can actually get as a productive player, I'll be very interested, because they're all looking for the next Jordan Mailata, the kid for the Philadelphia Eagles who played in Australia and was a rugby player and now one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. So
absolutely.
Moving on from there, we got the Carolina Panthers. They traded back into the first round with the Buffalo Bills, took Xavier Legette, wide receiver out of South Carolina, a major need for the Carolina Panthers. They took Jonathan Brooks, Texas running back, in the second round, and then they took Trayvon Wallace, linebacker out to Kentucky. Their major needs were wide receiver, tight end, cornerback, edge, and defensive tackle. But they were kind of devoid of real draft capital because of that Chicago Bears trade. Given what they had at their disposal, what do you think? How do you think that they fared in this draft?
You see me shaking my head. Honestly, I mean, Xavier Legette is going to be a hell of a player. Jonathan Brooks, I have no doubt he might be a hell of a player. But I still do think that this Carolina Panthers team needs help at the offensive line position. I mean, like, for a team that drafted a short running, in Bryce Young last season, he was hit a lot. They couldn't keep him upright. They couldn't block for shit last year, and they drafted 0 offensive linemen. They had an opportunity to grab Jackson Powers-Johnson and Zach Frazier, 2 guys that probably would have been 2 starters for the offensive line next season. Yep. And I feel like the Carolina Panthers get a D. I would have given them an F. I give them a D. I mean, they did address Xavier. I like Xavier Legette, but Jonathan Brooks in round number 2. You could have at least
not to mention not a major need. I mean, you could have drafted a running back later.
Way later in the draft.
I mean, you have an opportunity to take Jackson Powers-Johnson, who could have been your offensive tackle for the future, or a center for the future moving forward. I know that they paid a bunch of money for Robert Hunt to play offensive guard for them, but and I think they also spent some other money on somebody else. But like, you need to address the offensive line in your draft. You don't spend a single pick on it. I'm not going to go F. I will go C. For the
I went D. I didn't give him an F. I give him a D. D+. To
the Chicago Bears. My Chicago Bears, obviously, they took Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze in the first round. They followed it up with an offensive tackle out of Yale, whose last name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. They took a punter out of Iowa, and then they traded back into the first round. They took Austin Booker, an edge rusher out of Kansas. Their major needs were, wide receiver, corner, wide receiver, edge, offensive tackle as well. The only head-scratching pick out of this whole selection is the Troy Taylor, the punter out of Iowa. I don't really you only have so many picks. I don't really understand wasting one in that scenario. But I have no real complaints about the Chicago Bears draft. I think they hit it out of the park, and I think that I'm interested to see how this team looks like year one with this roster, and year one with Caleb Williams. But I didn't like the punter pick, but.
Obviously, he's got a DOS boot on him.
I know, but
punters in the college football, but you could have got a punter later. He probably could have been a 7th or the 5th round pick that you got Austin Booker for. You could have got a better edge in the 4th round. I don't even know who the hell was in the 4th. I had to look at the rounds and see who they could have drafted in the 4th round. Instead of him. But anyways, the Bears, you know what? It doesn't matter. They get an A from me because of the fact that they hit slam. The first day was a slam dunk with Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze. I mean, those are two guys that are going to be cornerstones um, of the. Is that like a bell or some background noise? What is that?
Oh, you're talking about the jingling?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, is that your cat?
My cat is like.
Oh, that's your cat. I was like, what the hell is that noise?
My cat is somewhere nearby right now. So I mean, she's.
Anyways,
they could have taken TJ Tampa in the 4th round over the punter. I mean, I just,
it's whatever. You know how I feel about those guys. Those are guys get picked in the end or undrafted guys. But yeah, Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze going to be cornerstones of the franchise for the foreseeable future. And then getting a guy like Kyron, I'm gonna try to pronounce it, Amagaji. He's a guy. I think I got it right. He's a guy. He's actually a hometown product.
He's from the
Hinsdale Central,
west suburbs or something.
He went to Hinsdale Central. He's a guy that he's a 3-year starter at Yale. He can play offensive guard. He can play guard. He can play tackle. So he's a guy that's gonna give you versatility on the offensive line. And then getting a guy like Austin Booker, gets a depth need at edge as well. I think he's a guy. He's big. He didn't test well, but on tape he shows. I mean, he plays a lot better than what he tested at Kansas. So I think I could give the Bears an A just because of the great first 2 picks that they had. I mean, they're not
A plus for me for the Chicago Bears. To the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of this really hangs on like the Amarius Mims pick, and whatever you think of Amarius Mims as a prospect, and whatever you think of Amarius Mims as a draft prospect, I just don't really understand taking him over some of the other guys that were available. Even if offensive tackle was a need, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, cornerback, wide receiver, and then tight end. I mean, they probably wish that Brock Bowers had fallen a little bit further for him, but the Marius Mims pick is real head scratching. What do you think about the rest of their picks? Looking at the rest of the lineup there.
Obviously, like you said, we'll start with the Marius Mims picks. He's more of a project guy. I mean, he's pretty much J.C. Latham, except he's just a project, in my opinion. I think he could have went and got Troy Fautanu, who is a more of a seasoned tackle. I think for them.
Not to mention Troy Fautanu would give you some more versatility. I mean, he can literally play anywhere on the offensive line.
Yeah. You know what? I like Chris Jenkins. I like the Jermaine Burton pick. I mean, we considering the fact that T. Higgins is very unhappy there. Yeah. We don't. He might get traded at some point this offseason. He's requested it. They don't have to trade him, but he's requested it. And Jermaine Burton is a hell of a wide receiver out of Alabama. Very quick, and he's got some good ball skills. I mean, he probably could have been a 1st-round pick. I mean, if they had more consistent quarterback play in the beginning of the season. I know that they kind of
he's the kid that transferred, right? He played only that one season at Alabama.
Yeah. So I think that I gotta give them a C+ though. I mean, you could have got a better value at your first overall pick. I mean at your 1st-round pick. But when I look at their their second day picks, I think they're all pretty good second day picks. I think McKinley Jackson, Chris Jenkins, they feel a need in the interior defensive line. Especially they play in a division where Pittsburgh is going to run the football, Baltimore is going to run the football, so you need some push in that on the defensive line with those 2 guys. So I'll give it a C+.
I'll go B+ for the Cincinnati Bengals. So or B-. I'll go B-.
B-. You being nice.
Second in the AFC North, we got the Cleveland Browns, and this is the first team that we're talking about that did not have a first. Oh no, I lied. But they got the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. They seem to like Ohio State guys. Cleveland dresses a major need with defensive tackle there. What do you think about Cleveland's draft as I swing up to their needs real quick? Offensive tackle, linebacker, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and then tight end. But I'm not really sure wide receiver is a major need since they traded for Jerry Jeudy. But they've still got, Jamari Thrash. I wonder if he's related to James Thrash. Is that James Thrash's kid?
I do not know if he's James Thrash's kid. But I mean, he's a quick wide receiver. I like the Michael Hall pick. For what they had. I mean, Zach Zenner and Michael Hall are going to be two guys that are going to make immediate impacts for, the Cleveland Browns. I think next season you get a defensive tackle who's, going to add depth to that line. Already a great defense in Cleveland. And then Zach Zinner's a hell of an offensive lineman for University of Michigan. The Big Ten just churns out great offensive linemen. The 7th round picks. I mean, let's see if they make the team. I mean, Miles Harden's 5'11", 195 out of South Dakota. A guy like Nathaniel Watson, he's a big line, 6'2", 233. Let's see. I mean, he led the SEC in total tackles. Tied the conference lead in sacks as well. So he's a guy that could add some depth to the outside linebacker position for the Cleveland Browns. So I'll give him a B. I'm going to give him a B. I'll give him a B for what they did. Michael Hahn, Zach Zinner gave were 2 value picks, I think, at where they got drafted. So.
Not to mention, this is the final draft where they will have any draft compensation leaving the Cleveland Browns as part of the Deshaun Watson trade. So for that alone, they should probably get a little bit higher of a grade, because this is it. Like all of the picks that they traded away for Deshaun Watson, this is the last one. There's no more picks to be dealt. I'll give them a solid B.
Yeah, I mean, and Houston made out like a bandit with how they hit on those picks.
True. To the Dallas Cowboys, who traded back in the draft. Still probably got the guy they would have taken at 22. Tyler Guyton becomes a member of the Dallas Cowboys. He basically allowed him to play. You can play him on either side, right tackle or left tackle. They got the edge. They got some other players in this draft. Looking at Dallas, I mean, the only thing that really is head scratching for the Dallas Cowboys is the lack of a running back. I mean, who is going to be the running back that's going to be I know they just signed Zeke Elliott today, but I just what are your thoughts on their picks?
I think they reached a little bit for Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan, even though he tested very well. I mean, he's a really good player out the MAC, and I'm not going to doubt any guys that get drafted out of the MAC. I mean, those guys, especially in the first 3 rounds, they become good pro players. I can't even think of the last MAC. I mean, Larry English, he got picked in the first round by the Chargers, and I think he's the only one out of the MAC that really they got picked in the first couple rounds of the draft that really never panned out. But guys like Khalil Mack, guys like obviously Ben Roethlisberger, guys like Jimmy Ward, they all panned out, in the NFL. So I'm not gonna knock Marshawn Nealon, but grabbing Maris Liafo out of Notre Dame when you could have drafted. You could have, went and got one of the running backs. I mean, golly, if I'm not mistaken, Green Bay went and got the kid out of USC in the 3rd round, if I'm not mistaken, Marshawn Lloyd, right after Maris Liafau.
That's true. That is exactly what happened. Marshawn Lloyd, USC running back, he went to the Green Bay Packers.
And that kid could have been your starting running back next season, because now you're going to roll in there with Rico Dowell. You're going to roll in there with an aging Ezekiel Elliott, who you didn't want in the first place. And so now you're just like, oh, well, we actually do need you now. And then you have an undersized Deuce Vaughn. You signed Royce Freeman, who, come on now. And so, what are they going to do at running back? I mean,
it's going to be a running back by
committee, I think.
It for sure was. So it for sure will be.
Yeah, for sure will be. So I think that I got to give the Dallas Cowboys a C. On this, I'll give them a C+ because Tyler Guyton's going to be a good player, I think, on that line.
They traded back and got other draft capital out of that.
Yeah.
I think that's what saves this draft for the Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. I'll give them a solid B-.
Yeah.
From the Cowboys to the Denver Broncos, who now have a billion quarterbacks in their quarterback room. But they did it, Bo Nix, Troy Franklin. They picked up some other guys later in this draft as wide receiver became a major need as they traded away Jerry Jeudy. They also got another edge in the 3rd round as they did not have a 2nd round pick as part of the Russell Wilson trade.
Yeah.
They get the kid from Utah. Another big need for the Denver Broncos going in. What do you think about Denver?
I actually like their draft. I mean, besides the fact that, they fell in love with Bo Nix. We all knew that they were going to draft Bo Nix. That was set in stone for 3-4 weeks before the draft even started. We all knew it was no surprise they were drafting Bo Nix. They just loved him. So they drafted Bo Nix, and it was everything after that. I think Jonah Ellis is going to be a hell of a player for them. He might make an immediate impact. They definitely need some wide receiver help. Troy Franklin, matching him up with his with his college quarterback. They're going to have a rapport there. And I think I love this pick, and not because I'm a Notre Dame fan, but Audric Estime is going to be a hell of a player for the Denver Broncos. You know what? I'm going to tell you this. His 40 time wasn't great, but all his other split times were pretty good, like in short bursts. And if you look at him, I mean, he had 18 rushing touchdowns last season. I mean, he can show that he has some breakaway speed. He's a powerful running back. He's a guy that you're going to get in the red zone. He's going to bulldoze in for a touchdown. I love that pick. And then also I saw a lot of Devon Vele too out of Utah. I think he's going to be a hell of a pick. I mean, if I'm going to pick a guy that can have a Puka Nacua type of impact, it's probably Devon Vele, in my opinion. So I'm going to give the Denver Broncos a good B on this draft, in my opinion. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I think also the great thing about drafting Bo Nix, like if Bo Nix is not the guy, which you'll probably find out pretty quick, you'll probably be in a bad situation, like a pretty high in the draft next year. So you could just take another shot at the quarterback position. Like it's just, I like what Denver did. I like the pairing Troy Franklin back up with Bo Nix. I'm not going to be as positive as you. I'll go C+ for the Denver Broncos. From Denver to the Detroit Lions, who addressed one of their major needs with their back-to-back picks in the first and second round. They did have to trade up, but arguably they got the best corner in the draft in Terrion Arnold. Enos Rexstraw Jr. Did have some buzz about first-round potential for him towards like the latter parts of mock drafts. To get him at the latter part of the second round, you basically rebuilt your secondary within 2 picks. I think the rest of you got a kid from British University. I think that's part of the international unit. Because I do not know anything about the University of British Columbia. I'm sure you do. But yeah, looking at their draft, looking at how they address the things, what do you think about this draft for the Lions? Oh, we got Soraya. He's talking about how Caleb was going to be a bust for the Chicago Bears. Man, that's tough. I hope you're wrong. Just saying. But yeah, Detroit Lions, they took us some shots here. They doubled it up in corner. I love doing that. It was a major need for this team. They end up I would have liked to have seen them get an offensive guard a little bit earlier in this draft. Because they didn't need an offensive tackle in the fourth round. They have Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell both locked up. They needed an offensive guard. I mean, I don't know what you're going to get out of the guy from Cloyd McKinstry. So, it is what it is. But Rakestraw was good value. I will go B- for the Detroit Lions and their draft. As I try to check to see what happened to Izzy. So just give me a second too. All right. Oh, man. Come on. Izzy got to come back. We got the Green Bay Packers. We don't just come back to Green Bay. To the Houston Texans, who did not have a first-round pick, as they traded to the Minnesota Vikings to pick up future draft capital. Just hold on a second. Let me see what happened to Izzy here. So yeah, Izzy's internet went out. So we're riding. We're riding with me right now. So all good. I will just have to address the Green Bay Packers. Go swinging back into the Green Bay Packers. So they get some of their major needs in this year's draft was tackle with Jordan Morgan, with David Bakhtiari leaving the team. Obviously, they lost Devontae Campbell, so adding Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker out of Texas A&M. They needed some safety depth there with Javon Bullard out of Georgia. You're going to get a good defensive player. And then you lost Aaron Jones because you signed Josh Jacobs. So you needed to address all of those areas of needs for the Green Bay Packers. You get what should be 5 starters in your first 5 picks with tackle Jordan Morgan, Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard, Marshawn Lloyd, and then Teron Hooper, the linebacker out of Missouri.
I think Teron Hooper is more or less going to be an edge. Yeah, I had some technical difficulties, guys. But yeah, I like that. I actually like the Jordan Morgan pick. A lot of guys didn't like that pick for some reason.
I do think it was kind of a reach, depending on who was still on the board. Like I think Tyler Guyton was probably would have been a better pick.
But he can play.
But
He can play guard too. You know what I mean? Like, Jordan Morgan, I think is a good player. I mean, if we look at Arizona's
and like Grant, I mean, if you want him to play guard, I mean, Grant Barton was the next pick. I mean, he would have been a better selection if you're gonna.
Let me pump the brakes here. Let me tell you why I like Jordan Morgan. See, Arizona had a resurgence last year, right? Noah Fafita was a freshman quarterback, and actually they have a guy in McMillan who was Noah Fafita's high school teammate, and he was amazing for Arizona at wide receiver 6'4". That guy's probably going to be a first rounder next year. But Jordan Morgan is the reason why Noah Fafita had great success and was not, on the ground most of the time. He was his left tackle. He was amazing. He's got long arms. He's athletic. He can move. I like, and he's a guy that was rising up. I don't hate that pick. I actually like that pick over, maybe when I look at the potential of a Jordan Morgan, I think he could be a keystone, tackle for the Green Bay Packers. Now, the only pick I love Edgerrin Cooper too, by the way. Oh, TJ's in there, David. I love the Edgerrin Cooper pick. I love Javon Bullard. We basically
what's up, TJ? Welcome to the show, man.
We basically our two starting safeties are going to be Javon Bullard and Xavier McKinney, who I think are upgrades from last season off the bat, in my opinion. And then Marshawn, I think Marshawn Lloyd's going to be a hell of a player. And then the only guy, Tyron Hooper, he's going to give you some more depth, but I think he's more or less going to be a special teams guy. That's the guy where I was like, I didn't really like that pick, especially I love Peyton Wilson. So I think I would have loved for them to grab a Peyton Wilson, but since you already grabbed inside linebacker and Edgerrin Cooper, I think that you didn't need a guy like that.
But if you had to give it a grade,
if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it a B, solid B, because there's I mean.
I also think Michael Pratt, the kid from Tulane, he could be a really solid backup. He could be like part of this Green Bay backup that ends up being like Michael Pratt.
Oh yeah, Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt's a hell of a player. But you know who I really like though? The 7th round pick, Kalen King. Kalen King. Oh man, that's a value picks right there. He is not a 7th round pick. He should have been drafted in the second day. For some reason, he went to the 7th round. What the were teams thinking? He's going to be in the Green Bay Packers. I love it.
This doesn't pertain to you, because I know the type of Packer fan you are. First off, again with the shades, I just again.
I told David it might be a staple for me, man.
It might be a staple. Okay.
It might be a staple. I told him.
Hey, but there were Packer fans on Twitter, like you're cute. Just trying to troll Bears fans, like, oh, your QB1 lost to our QB3, and it's just like, really, like that's where we're going with this, like Caleb Williams threw for 500 yards that game and threw 5 touchdowns, and he lost by a point to a team that ran for 300 yards. Like that's the hill y'all want to die on. Like our QB1 lost to your QB3. Okay, fine. Like whatever helps you sleep at night, right? I messaged you about the Javon Bullard pick. I'm like, yo, that's a quality pick right there. I don't know if he starts.
I love that pick, bro.
I don't know if
I think he'll start. I think he'll start eventually, especially Xavier McKinney.
I think the first 2 guys will start for sure. With Brian Bulaga probably out, Edgerrin Cooper with what's his name, Devondre Campbell.
Brian Bulaga.
Not Brian Bulaga. You mean David Bakhtiari?
Bakhtiari, yeah.
Brian Bulaga. That's a name right there.
Yeah, that was man. You know what?
Going back to the
don't bring back. Hey, TJ. Don't bring. You brought up Brian Bulaga. And it almost caused the switch of the argument me and David had the other day about quarterbacks, okay? Because he was on that Packers team too. So anyway,
my God, no. My man, Brian Bulaga, that's quite the name.
So y'all got 2 safeties. Y'all got 2 safeties though. So I don't like. I really think
three safeties.
I will say this. I would have
3 safeties. Yeah, you're right. I really think it comes down to who has the better camp. And
I would love for them to go get an edge. Especially the fact that this guy tore his ACL against the Cowboys. What's his name? In Igbari tore his ACL against the Cowboys, and so they're gonna have a need at edge. And we're hoping Tyron Hooper. We're hoping whatever the hell the kid from Iowa is gonna step in and do some things. But
Did y'all do the Bears
I
homework?
wanted to get an
Did you do the
edge
Bears homework?
with that pick.
Yeah, we
At
did the
least
Bears,
Isaac.
right? Alphabetical order. Swinging from the Green Bay Packers to the Houston Texans. Obviously, they did not have a first overall pick as they traded to Minnesota. But looking at their draft, how do you guys feel like the Houston Texans did?
I think A's is having some more internet issues. All things considered,
So their major needs going into this year's draft was cornerback, tight end, linebacker, interior offensive lineman, and defensive tackle. And looking at the guys that they drafted and the names here, they've addressed a lot of those needs.
absolutely.
So Marcus Harris, Auburn. You got the tackle out of Michigan, Ladarius Henderson. You got Blake
Cade
Fisher.
Stover.
Yeah, Kamari Lazard, the cornerback out of Georgia. This is a pretty good draft. I mean, and this is also a good draft for a team that didn't have that many holes. As shockingly as that sounds to say, about the Houston Texans.
Well, they got position number 1 right. That's why it looks like they don't have that many holes. Like, what's his name? CJ Stroud probably covered for a lot of deficiencies that they probably had. Like that was, I think that's the difference between him and why is his name escaping me? The guy they had last year.
His name is, that is not coming to me right now.
My quarterback.
That is so disrespectful.
Talking about the kid out of Stanford that I thought was going to be the
best
quarterback in the AFC South.
But Izzy, like, to your point, it's not like you didn't like have a reason to think that.
Davis Mills.
There you go.
It ain't like Davis Mills was terrible. It was just like, for whatever reason, like the defense just did dumb stuff. Like they didn't, like Houston would have, like we saw here live in Chicago, Houston would have a lead and Davis Mills, like the defense needed them to get a stop and they didn't get it, or they needed that one play to get back in the game, or Davis Mills to turn it over. So it's like CJ Stroud came in and he got that one play that Davis Mills didn't get, and the defense got the one stop that they didn't get a year ago. I think the win in this draft is two things: Blake Fisher, the tackle out of Notre Dame, and Cade Stover, the tight end out of Ohio State. A lot of people were so hung up on Brock Bowers at the tight end spot, and rightly so. I get it, but everybody should have known that, hey, if I'm not in a position to get Brock Bowers, I'm not likely gonna get Brock Bowers. So if
you didn't pick in the top 15, I mean, you're not getting Brock Bowers.
You're not getting Brock Bowers. So like it's on you to do research on the other tight ends in the draft. And Cade Stover was a very solid tight end for Ohio State while he was there. He was very serviceable, and he fits their needs. So Houston, I give this draft. I give it a B. Like, I'm interested to see what a defender out of USC and Solomon Byrd can bring to the next level, because they were paper mache. They were paper mache at the college level. USC's defense is literally why they went 8-5.
You know what? You took the words right out of my mouth, because I was gonna say Kalen Bullock. You know, that USC team was known for like missing so many tackles and not being a great tackling team, especially in the defensive backfield. So you took the words out of my mouth, because I was going to say drafting Kalen Bullock in the 3rd round. I would have rather. I mean, there's a guy. Let me think. TJ Tampa, who slipped to the Ravens. You know, in the 4th round, they could have drafted a guy like him and slipped him there. Possibly at safety or whatever the case is, or a lot of teams are playing those nickel and shit like that. So, anyways, I love their first 2 picks though. I'm going to give it a B- though. I think that in the 2nd round, Kamari Lassiter is a great pick. Blake Fisher's a great pick. I don't have any problems with that. I'll give it a B-.
I'm going to go B- too. Let's move a little bit quicker through the rest of these picks, because we're moving pretty slow. We're already 45 minutes in. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, they took Latu with their first overall. A.D. Mitchell How do you guys think that they did addressing their needs in this year's draft? Donnie Mitchell, yeah, sorry.
First off, shout out to the GM for standing up for
Chris
Adonai
Bullard.
Mitchell. Chris Bullard. Yeah, shout out to him because everybody was shitting on him for the Adonai Mitchell pick. Like he's like, what is wrong with y'all? Like, so the kid can't get better.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole purpose. Like that's our job. Like we draft the kid, we work, like we fix what he's bad at.
I mean, he's 21 years old.
21 years old.
I mean, we're all pretty immature at 21. I mean, he's gonna grow up. Like he's gonna be in an NFL setting. He's gonna be around other grown men who are gonna keep him on the straight and narrow. I mean, he's gonna have teammates around him like Michael Pittman Jr. to keep him
like
on,
he's
not like he's had any off the field stuff. It's just like effort stuff that people want to talk about. I mean, all of that is just immaturity.
That and stuff that can be fixed. But you said it. He is going to be around other grown men. He ain't going to be around 18,
Children.
19, 20, 21-year-olds. He's going to be around other grown men with shit to do, bills to pay.
Yeah.
So first off, shout out to him for that. The rest of the shit, like the rest of the draft, it was kind of like with them, with the Colts. Obviously, I think last season was a wash. Because what's his name?
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson gets hurt, but she was still one play away from going to the playoffs. That's Gardner Minshew. If Gardner Minshew makes a better pass,
I mean, if that running back just catches the ball.
if the running back catches the ball, no matter who you want to blame, it was a fuck up. I give this draft class. I give this a B-. I think they could have. Yeah, this is a B- for me. Because I think for them, they kind of feel like they're the same as Houston. Like not a lot of holes, not a lot to fix. I give it a B-.
I just don't love the Latu pick at edge. You have a much bigger need at corner. And don't address it until the 6th round. This is a C+ for me.
Yeah, no, I'm actually gonna give it. I'll give it a B-, David, because you know what? Outside of Latu, who's one major hit away from possibly retiring from football. I like AD Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean he was medically retired already once.
Yeah, it's that bad. He's one bad hit away from breaking his neck and being done.
Paralyzed.
Paralyzed.
Oh
but I do like AD Mitchell, and I do like their 4th round pick, Tanner Bortolini out of Wisconsin. You get a Big Ten lineman, Big Ten offensive lineman. Tanner Bortolini. He says for Wisconsin. Tanner Bortolini's a big center. He could play guard as well. So I got to give it a B- because I just like those 2 picks out of this whole draft. I think those 2 guys are gonna start for them next season. So
2 staying in the AFC South to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who traded back to pick up Brian Thomas Jr. Looking at their draft, what are you guys' thoughts on the Jacksonville Jaguars? I'm a big fan of trading back and getting the guy you're probably going to take anyways. Brian Thomas Jr. should be a day 1 starter. I know they have a lot of wide receivers there in Jacksonville, but I like what they did there with that pick. You address tackle, which you needed bad since Jawan Taylor is no longer there. Cornerback, another position of need, probably from FSU, who has the argument of being DBU. I like Jacksonville Jaguars draft. I think they're a good job. I'm giving this a solid B+.
Jones. Yeah, like you said, Brian Thomas, nice value pick there. I actually like their first 4 picks, like David addressed. Actually, their first 5 picks, Jordan Jefferson's going to be a nice defensive tackle for them as well. I'm going to actually give Jacksonville a B, not a B+, but I'll give them a B in this draft.
I think the steal of their draft class is Miles Cole, the edge out of Texas Tech. I think he had like a late 3rd, maybe a 4th round grade on him, and he fell all the way to the 7th. And you gotta ask why guys like that fall. What's the reasoning behind it? But other than that, I give it a B. Obviously, their season goes as Trevor Lawrence goes, and Trevor Lawrence was kind of beat to hell last season, but fans don't want to hear that. Why? Because he was beat up and he played, and they don't care about that.
From the Jacksonville Jaguars to the reigning Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs. They traded up into the first round to take Xavier Worthy, the speedster out of Texas. Izzy, thoughts on their draft?
Man, Xavier Worthy, very, very, very fast. Fastest 40 time 4.22. But at the same time, I mean, a lot of people are trying to compare him to a Tyreek Hill type of player. He had a really good freshman year. Had 1,000 yards last season. So I think Xavier Worthy getting him in the first round, adding him to to that Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver room. I would have liked to see some other maybe some other depth picks. I mean, like on the line or whatever the case is. But they got that in the second round with Kingsley Samataya.
I would have liked to have seen them address corner way earlier than in the 6th round. I mean, Ladarius Sneed isn't walking back through that door. I would have liked to have seen them address corner.
I like Jaden Hicks out of Washington State, though. That's a nice little pick there at safety. I give the champs a B minus here on their draft. But I do agree.
I'll go B minus too.
Yeah, I agree with you on the cornerback. I mean, I'm looking at these teams, and they passed on T.J. Tampa, who I think is going to be a hell of a player, and he slipped all the way to the 4th round to the Baltimore Ravens, and he's still there. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, man. So
TJ.
Yeah, your tackles were 2 of the most penalized players in the league last season. That's a problem. You got lucky because in the 3 most important games of the season, they had 0 holding. They had 0 penalties called on them, which again, Izzy always complains about Vegas being rigged. That shit's kind of rigged. Like having 2 of the most penalized guys not go 3 games, throw 3 of the most important games and not get a penalty call. Shit's rigged. I mean, it's just you're doing the penalty, they're just not getting called. So them getting Kingsley Sumayata is an absolute steal because you can't have a guy false starting 5 yards behind the ball and then being mad when he gets called. No, you can't have that. Xavier Worthy is gonna be a steal. Like he gets to develop the rest of his route tree. You don't know what's gonna happen with Rashee Rice.
Yeah,
and that situation. Overall, you're the champs. I give this. I'm with Izzy. I give it a B.
I will go B minus. I can't understand the corner's decision. Like you got to draft it. You lose your starting corner. You don't replace him until the 6th round. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. From there, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. They got Brock Bowers. They got arguably two big time steals in their first 2 picks. Tommy Eichenberg could be a good run stopping linebacker from Ohio State. But Jackson Powers Johnson, Brock Bowers, arguably where they took them, both are steals. What do you guys think of their draft?
I love their draft.
I don't not hate their draft. Like if I could say that. The one thing I want the people to do is leave the last 2 games against Michigan. Like that's the caveat. Like for Tommy Eichenberg. Because like everybody's like, oh, we got a good run stopping linebacker. Oh, did you see him against Michigan? Okay, bro, Michigan ran on everybody. Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
Michigan
he's also the brother of William Eichenberg, who's again is the center.
Well, with a name like Eichenberg, that's a very distinct last
name. Man, you give me a hard time about stuff like that all the time.
You be picking the most common names, and people be like, are these 2 people related? Like, no. But with a name like Eichenberg, like it's a fair assumption that they're related. I think they got an absolute steal in Jackson Powers Johnson. I think they moved him to guard because he that's the part that confused me. Like he on his card it says center, but when they announced his name it said guard, and everything else listed on him says center. I'm all like, all right, so what is he doing? Like, what position is he playing?
I mean, he gives you versatility.
Actually, a guy that was. I read a lot of articles before leading to the draft too, and like he was a guy that was actually anticipated to slide, not that far, but he was anticipated to slide, almost like late.
What's that? 12 picks? He slid 12 picks past the 1st round. 44.
Yeah, but he was anticipated to at least go late 1st round.
I had him in the 1st round in every mock draft I did. I did not expect him to fall. So
I think they were just because they were there at 13. I think Brock Bowers is there at 13. You got to get him. I don't understand it. I think that was just like a best player available type grab, and it's like we're gonna.
I mean, you could also run like they can run a lot of 21 like formations. I mean,
well, they're gonna have to now.
Not to mention Brock Bowers could go to.
He could play wide receiver. Yeah, he could play wide receiver.
He could play like a little bit in, like wide out. I mean, but you know what? You know why I like their draft, and them not going to get. Everybody was like Spencer Rattler went 2 picks after Tommy Eichenberg, by the way.
Right.
To the Saints. Them not going to get a quarterback sets them up next season because they're not going to be very good. The next season.
They are 100% going to be in the Shedeur Sanders sweepstakes. Like
exactly. Or the Quinn Ewers sweepstakes. Or, it's him, Quinn Ewers, Drew Aller, who's the other? Cam Rising, Carson Beck from Georgia.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a top 10, top 15 picnic. So they put themselves in and they say, look, we're not going to get a quarterback this year. We're going to roll with Gardner Minshew, and then we're going to next season we're gonna go get our quarterback in the first round. So I actually give them a B+ because getting Brock Bowers is a hell of a talent. Jackson Powers Johnson, the first 2 picks, is a hell of a talent. I like Tommy Eichenberg. He's a Raider type of linebacker. In my opinion.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
To the Los Angeles Chargers, they obviously took Joe Alt, a little bit of a shocking pick for them at 5, taking the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. They traded up into the first round or into the second round to take Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver out of Georgia. What do you guys think about their draft? They did take 3 wide receivers in this draft. They also took a running back out of Troy to address the Austin Eckler void.
I'm giving them a B+, damn near borderline A- in my opinion.
I swear to God, I am. This was getting Joe
Alt. Getting Joe Alt is because what's Harbaugh like to do? He loves to run that football.
Who is going to run? Oh, they got J.K. Dobbins, but come on.
Yeah, but you
want to run the football, but they don't have one on the roster that you like.
Right. I get what you're saying, David. I get what you're saying, but getting Joe Alt, I mean, oh man, I love that.
It is nice. It does make sure that Joshua Palmer stays wide receiver 1.
Well, that McConkey's a fast slot guy. I think he's gonna find somewhere. Ladd McConkey's gonna make an impact for them. Junior Colson's a hell of a pick. I love their first 4 picks, and then I love this guy, Cam Hart out of Notre Dame, big cornerback.
He's the Roshan Johnson of Notre Dame, because everybody was like Audric Estimate, like everybody was on that train, and then here comes Cam Hart just out of nowhere, just like hey y'all better put some respect on my name, because I'm one of them guys too. Like I'm one of them guys. I'm from around the way.
I think addressing tackle at Joe Alt. I think you can put him on the other side of.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was beautiful because the first 4 picks were chalk. Like you could already say, you could make the argument, hey, the draft ain't start to number 5, because like when they went Joe Alt, that probably changed boards for everybody.
Especially the Titans. They were Joe Alt was so commonly. Joe Alt was so commonly mocked to the Titans. Like it probably changed their entire draft strategy.
Cam Hart was the second best corner on that Notre Dame team next to his teammate Ben Morrison, who's probably going to be the first cornerback picked in next year's draft. So, and then also, you guys notice that name down there, right? Brendan Rice in the 7th round. That's Jerry Rice's boy.
Don't expect him to be
Jerry Rice, but he's a big wide receiver, has a good route tree. I think James Harbaugh will use him. Well, I think it'd be
I'm going B- for the Chargers.
I think the shock to me was them not getting Blake Corum, because they had ample opportunity to grab Blake Corum, and they never did. And
I'm pretty shocked about that too. So.
Hey, let's give this kid Vidal. Who knows? Hey, Kamani Vidal might be a steal.
No. You're like if there's any one position that's that's easily.
I forgot the Chargers have Gus Edwards too.
Where did Austin Eckler land?
He's at Washington.
You know what I'm saying? In the draft, where did he land? Wasn't he like
He was pretty late. Yeah, he might have been undrafted. He might have been undrafted.
Yeah. So come on. All right.
From the Chargers to the other team in LA, the Rams. They got Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk with their first 2 picks, and then they took Blake Corum in the 3rd round. What do you guys think about this draft for the Rams?
Loved it. A. Solid
Yeah,
A.
I'm gonna give it an A too, man. Their first
Solid
4 picks. First 4 picks, they knocked it out the park, in my opinion. Jared Verse, great player. They paired up 2 teammates, Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk, who, you're going to put Brandon Fisk. I mean, he has similar combine numbers to Aaron Donald. You put him next to Kobe Turner. And Cam Kitchens, he's a ball hog, 11 interceptions his last 2 seasons at Miami. I love it. I mean, Blake Corum was a Heisman Trophy finalist 2 years ago. So national champ, one of the best runners, and he's one of the stronger running backs in the league. Did you see his bench press? Hey, 225, 25 plus times. So come on, man.
Yeah, I think the Rams did a good job. I think their first 2 picks are knocked out of the park. Blake Corum should be a rotation running back for them for the foreseeable future. I'll go B minus for the Rams.
That sounds like some hate.
Moving on to the Miami Dolphins. A lot of question marks with the Chop Robinson pick there at the edge position out of Penn State. But the rest of their draft, they took an offensive they took a tackle in the 2nd round of Patrick Paul. What do you guys think about the draft here for the Miami Dolphins?
You know what, man? I think people don't like that Chop Robinson pick, but I love Chop Robinson. I mean, he had 4 sacks last season, but when teams start to notice you, when you break out, especially in the Big Ten, they start the game plan for you. So Chop Robinson has an excellent motor, probably the highest motor in this draft, in my opinion, out of all the defensive linemen and edge guys in this draft. And then Patrick Paul's a 3-year starter, tackle out of Houston. He's a big, athletic guy. Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. I love that pick. And then Muhammad Kamara out of Colorado State. People sleep on him. Oh my God, he's such a good edge out of Colorado State. I'm surprised he even fell to the 5th round. I think he's going to be a hell of a player for the Miami Dolphins. I'm actually going to give the Dolphins a good B+ on this draft, just because of their 2nd, 4th, and 5th rounds. All those guys are value picks for where they got them, in my opinion.
I'm gonna go. I'll go B for the Miami Dolphins. I mean, Patrick Paul should be a starter. Giving out the
all things considered. All things considered, yeah. All things considered, yeah. Next, move on.
Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, who traded up for JJ McCarthy. Then they traded up for Dallas Turner. How about the rest of their draft, gentlemen? What do you think about the Minnesota Vikings?
Love the Dallas Turner pick.
Absolutely.
I actually like their first 2 picks. I think on the strength of those 2 picks alone, I'll go B+ for this.
I think that Kyrie Jackson in the 4th round was that string of all those Oregon players that were going off the board back to back to back. I think there were 4 Oregon players that went back to back to back to back in the fourth round, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's getting the first 3 picks. I mean, they had after first round and then the 4th round. I mean, you got 6 and 7s.
Kyrie Jackson, Brandon Dorlus, and then Evan Williams all went within 3 out of the 4. 3 picks out of 4. Javon Baker broke it up from the UCF.
I got to give it a B. I like JJ McCarthy, man. A lot of guys are hating on JJ, man. JJ's got JJ get out the pocket. He can make accurate throws.
Can you blame him though?
Huh?
Can you blame him though?
Well, no.
Exactly. So until JJ comes out and does it for the Vikings, no one's gonna buy in wholeheartedly. And again, the question about JJ McCarthy is, can he do for the Vikings what he wasn't asked to do for Michigan? Jim Harbaugh didn't say, "Hey JJ, go win me this game." There was literally a game against Penn State where they didn't throw the ball the entire second half.
I mean, they were up pretty big, and they were running the ball fucking 5 yards a clip.
Exactly. So, how many games in the NFL are you going to run the ball at 5 yards a clip?
None. 0, probably.
I mean, Michigan had the best offensive line, in my opinion, the last 2 seasons in college football.
The proof is in
the pudding. How many? If we look at the totality of how many of their offensive linemen have gotten drafted in the last 2 years, it's probably get 5-6 guys, maybe possibly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, and they had two good running backs and Blake Corum and the other guys mistaken. He's slipping my mind right now, and I cover college football a lot. But I like the first two picks. Dallas Turner's a steal at 17.
That's a steal. That's
a steal at 17. What?
B plus for
B
Minnesota.
plus.
B plus. B plus.
You add JJ McCarthy to Justin J. Jetta and TJ Hawkinson and
Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison,
and a pretty good offensive line. Like,
come on.
Yeah.
What?
To the New England Patriots. Obviously, they took Drake May with the 3rd overall pick. In the 2nd round, they got Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington. Let's talk about it. The other wide receiver out of Washington.
Godly. I think, getting the guy Jalen Polk's a hell of a player. I think, he's the other wide receiver out of Washington, like you said. Nice deep threat. I mean, this team's not going to be great next year, obviously. But they went and got some linemen to fill some needs. I think every pick that they got was a need pick. I mean, they needed some wide receiver help. Drake May at quarterback. Obviously, that he's godly. I mean, I watched him the last couple of seasons, and he last season took a little bit of a dip. I mean, his sophomore year he was phenomenal. I look at a guy, Javon Baker's a guy that can stretch the field as well out of the 4th round. So, I'll give, New England a B minus,
Yeah, I'm going to go B too. I think, given the fact that they addressed offense in the first 5 picks in this year's draft.
Yes.
It speaks to this is a different era of New England Patriots. Like the fact that they went offense for 5 straight picks bodes well for the future.
Let me tell you something, though.
I will go B for.
Hey, getting Joe Milton is an insurance pick at the quarterback position. Even though I know, look, check it out. Drake May's top 3 overall, but say Drake May goes down or something like that. Like Joe Milton has a cannon for an arm, and he's athletic. And I mean, we've seen later round picks, flourish, in certain situations. So I like that, getting doubling up on the quarterbacks, in this draft. So.
TJ.
I mean, again, I wouldn't have went with Drake May at 3. If I was the Patriots, I probably would have grabbed Bo Nix at 3. Probably would have got a lot of hate for that. But again, I'm like these one-hit wonders at the quarterback spot. You just gotta be wary of them. Like I like the Jalen Polk pick. I like the offensive tackle pick because New England had a lot of holes last season, and a lot of the blame, fairly or unfairly, was placed at the feet of Mac Jones. Well, Mac Jones ain't there no more. Belichick ain't there no more. So who you gonna blame this time around if you have a bad season?
Yeah.
All in all, I'll give it a C+.
From there, we got the New Orleans Saints. They're the team that ended up with Spencer Rattler if they didn't have a pick in the 3rd or 4th round. But they get Release Fuaga, tackle out of Oregon State, give a major need given what's going on with their current tackles. And then they got kind of a steal in Kool-Aid McKinstry in the 2nd round. What do you guys thought of New Orleans? I think they did a great job in this draft. I think Spencer Rattler goes to a good place where he could potentially play next year. This is like a B plus for me.
I'm actually gonna give it an A minus because Talise Fuaga is one of the best tackles in the draft. He fell to them at 14. They were talking about maybe he could have been the 2nd tackle picked in the draft outside of Joe Alt. Kool-Aid McKinstry, high IQ player. 3-year starter for started for Nick Saban in Alabama. I mean, I don't know how many people can say that they started for Nick Saban at Alabama since they were a true freshman. And Kool-Aid McKinstry and Spencer Rattler. Let me tell you something. He doesn't need to start right away. If people will remember, he's a 5-star recruit, and when he went to Oklahoma first, he sat behind who else? Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. So he can sit behind Derek Carr. For a season, especially if Carr is playing well. But I think if there's any indication that Derek Carr doesn't play well, and the season's lost. And Spencer Rattler's going in there. And I think, he's the seventh quarterback in this draft taken. I think going at 150, people had him a lot higher, second round pick, third round pick, possibly. I give this an A-. I love this. I love what they did, man. I love what they did.
And quiet as kept, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions at South Carolina. Like, South Carolina's not the powerhouse in college football that it used to be. They're far from it. They're far removed from it. So the transgressions, I guess, that Spencer Rattler may have had in the past, can't hold that against him. Like, it's a new situation. Like, he had a lot of growing up to do. He did. And he got humbled. Pretty like.
He had a great. The Spencer Rattler went through a lot. He went through the fire, and then to get picked still, in a great situation, in a good situation, I think in New Orleans is awesome because second year had a good pick. We were talking about Spencer Rattler. If he finishes his junior season and plays well, we're talking about Spencer Rattler being a number 1 overall pick, possibly.
But
right?
These are also talent evaluators and scout who held a Netflix documentary against him. Like, he was 17, 18 years old.
Oh, smoking the weed situation. Yeah, but I think the Oklahoma fans, they turned on him. I mean, when they saw that Caleb Williams was a guy and they were losing in the Red River rivalry, they were booing the fans. I mean, that was like, I always say this, and I'm gonna forever say this. Lincoln Riley a whole for that, because if that was my son, I would be so pissed off at Lincoln Riley. You cost my son a first round. Caleb Williams could have sat, majority of that season. He could have played at the end of the season. Let Spencer Rattler play that season. He might have been a second round pick in that draft, maybe a first round pick in that draft. You cost him a lot of money, Lincoln Riley, and then he goes to South Carolina, plays under Shane Beamer, under his old OC, and I think he did well for what they had. They had a bad offensive line. I mean, he did what he could. And I think he's a hell of a talent. Going 150 is a steal, I think, for them, for New Orleans. They got a guy that they can mold into what they want to be. So,
moving from the New Orleans Saints to the New York Football Giants, they get Malik Neighbors, sorry. Then they get Tyler Nubin, first 2 picks. Quickly now, Giants, grade
C.
B. I like Malik Neighbors and I like Tyler Nubin. That's all I got.
I agree with that. I'm gonna go B- on the Giants. From there, we got the New York Football Jets. They took a tackle, Foshanu, the kid from Penn State, at 11 overall. Passed up on the wide receivers and Brock Bowers. A lot of people had him mocked there. Grade.
I don't mind them passing on Brock Bowers because, again, like the return on investment for Aaron Rodgers has to hit. I give it a B. So, like, the tackle spot has been.
Jalen Key, Mr. Irrelevant from Alabama. Yeah.
I think they actually had a pretty good draft. I'm going to give it a B as well, because that's solid B, because Olu Fashanu is a good pick. I mean, to keep him upright, and then drafting Braylon Allen, to be that second two-headed monster there in New York, and then Jordan Travis should be, Jordan Travis should be who I'm talking about, who's their guy. Breece Hall's their main guy. Braylon Allen should be their second year guy.
I just don't really understand taking 2 running backs.
When you have Jordan Travis lands in a perfect situation. He's able to rehab, sit behind Aaron Rodgers, and then Quantez Diggers. A lot of people ain't talking about him. He's a guy that actually played in the that fantasy football, that fan football league. If you guys remember, that fan football league.
No, I do not remember.
Yeah, Quantez Diggers played in the fan. So he was
Antonio Brown thing, right? Like,
he was playing in some D2, D3 school. He had to come home because his father or somebody got ill, and then his mother basically told him, like, hey, encouraged him to try out for that fan football league. He did really well in that fan football league. A coach from the CFL saw him. They put him on the Toronto Argonauts or something like that. Then he was like rookie of the year in the CFL, and then he gets picked in the 5th round. And he's got a lot of talent. I think
that's a hell of a story. Moving on from the Jets, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, who arguably got 2 of the better value picks in the entire draft. Quayon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, back-to-back picks in the first 2 rounds. Grade, Philadelphia Eagles.
This is an A+ for me. An A+. Getting 2 of the best cornerbacks in the draft. Getting Jalix Hunt, who is a little bit of a mystery because he played for, I think, the Houston Christians, D2, something like that. But he is an athletic freak. He showed he played, had good tests, and he was a hell of a player at the Senior Bowl. And then getting Will Shipley, who's a hell of a running back out of Clemson, a little bit of a concussion, kind of some banged up injuries. He's a smaller, slider frame back, but I mean, he gives them an offensive weapon. And getting Jeremiah Trotter Jr., life is full circle. His dad is
full circle.
Yeah, his dad is a Philadelphia Eagle, great. And then getting Johnny Wilson in the 6th round, a guy who you can turn into a guy like Darren Waller. Johnny Wilson, 6'8", 2 something. You can turn him into a tight end. They're probably going to transition him into tight end.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm going A- for the Philadelphia Eagles based on their first 2 picks. I think they just smashed it. TJ.
Don't do that. I'm not turning Johnny Wilson to a tight end, bro. Like, they tried that shit with Hakeem Butler, and Hakeem Butler's been in the XFL. Like, don't do that.
But Johnny Wilson isn't going to beat any cornerbacks, though. He's not going to beat anybody. Like he's not going to create separation at the next level. So he might.
Bro, you 6'6". I don't need you to see. He's
6'8".
That's the misconception with receivers now. Like, they like, oh, you don't create separation. What happened? Like, no, I can. I'm bigger than the guy in front of me.
I'm just gonna box him out, but
I'm bigger than the guy in front of me. Like, bro, throw it up there. I will get it. I promise you, I will get it. Anyway, like I said, this is an A for me. Knocked it out the park. I have no issues with their draft picks whatsoever. None.
And then another super strong draft. I'm just telling you right now, this is an A+ for me. To get Troy Fautanu, Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, and then Peyton Wilson in the 3rd round just falls in their laps. I mean, he was arguably a 1st-round talent. This is an A+ for me for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love this draft.
This is definitely an A+. All the first 4 guys are automatic starters on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Automatic starters. And all needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A+. I love Peyton Wilson. I'm so sick of the fact that people were like, the ACL, he had 2 ACL injuries, and bro, he had
Peyton Wilson had a on the field speed faster than Tyreek Hill last season on the play.
Dude, over 400 tackles. He won the Bednarik Award. He won both the defensive awards in college football last season. He's an All-American, unanimous All-American. Come on, man.
TJ.
No complaints. Like Troy, like a lot of these guys, like a lot of the guys that's listed, they're well coached, so they're not gonna go into a situation and be unprepared for a guy like Mike Tomlin. This is an A.
Dave Doran, old NIU coach, said Peyton Wilson is the best player he's ever coached.
To the San Francisco 49ers, who did have a lot of needs, and they tried to address. Shockingly, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel not traded during this draft, but they get Ricky Pearsall, they get cornerback out of Florida State, they get Demonte Pooty, tackle out of Kansas State, and then they get a safety to fill their depth. That secondary. What do you guys think of San Francisco's draft?
C. I hated their draft.
I hated their draft.
Yeah,
I'm going to go C too. I don't really understand the Ricky Pearsall pick.
Could it be some personal bias in that?
Oh, for sure it is.
No. Just because of reaching for Ricky Pearsall, like Ricky Pearsall is a 2nd round, 3rd round grade in my opinion. Definitely a 2nd round grade in my opinion. And I mean, I guess you could say, they didn't have any, choice at, with Renardo Green, but they could have went in,
they could have taken a corner at that first with that pick. They needed a corner in the worst way. I mean, I'm going C+.
And another full circle moment here in the NFL. He didn't get drafted. They signed him as an undrafted free agent.
Frank Gore?
No, don't you agree?
Oh,
okay, David, don't you agree at 31? If Cooper DeJean's still there, get him.
Yeah, I agree.
And then in the 2nd round, go get a wide receiver, or go get a wide receiver if you want.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing?
Tariq Owens, David, Terrell Owens' son.
Oh, shit.
A 49er, yeah.
That's from San Francisco, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, they got Byron Murphy with the 16 overall pick. What do you guys think about Seattle's draft? Is this the first draft in the past the Pete Carroll era?
B. I'll give it a B.
I'll give it a B because they didn't have a 2nd rounder. I think they smashed it out the park with Byron Murphy. Getting Christian Haynes is a pretty good pick in the 3rd round, so I'll give it a B as well. Tyrese Knight's a nice player too at linebacker as well. he's going to be a guy that look out for his name next season on that defense.
I'll go B2 for the Seattle Seahawks. To the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they get Graham Barton out of Duke, a really versatile offensive lineman. Can probably play him all over the place.
And
I'm gonna go A2 for this. A minus for Tampa Bay.
I ain't no A minus, an A. Graham Barton, Chris Braswell, Jalen McMillan, Tyke Smith, Jalen McMillian, Bucky Irvin. All of those guys are going to be phenomenal players for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All of those guys.
DJ.
No complaints. No disagreements.
To the Tennessee Titans, who took J.T. Latham out of Alabama at 7. Some people said that could have been considered a reach. They kind of panicked and took the next available tackle when they could have taken other positions. Devondre Sweat, his draft stock did not really take a hit after he got the DUI following the season. What do you guys think of this draft for the Tennessee Titans?
He is a massive human being, prototypical nose tackle. Yeah. I like Cedric Gray too. Outside of Peyton Wilson, I think Cedric Gray was the best linebacker in the ACC. But yeah, I mean, Jaquan Jackson's actually was a hell of a player. It was a number 1 wide receiver threat for Tulane and Michael Pratt. But you know, getting J.C. Latham just did. I mean, they could have went
Brock Bowers. I mean, they could have gone Romeo Dunze. I mean,
yeah,
just the value wasn't really there at 7 to take J.T. Latham. I mean, I know you have need at tackle, but like just because you have a need doesn't mean you should throw away your big board.
Yeah, I'm going.
Not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't call that a panic move. It's like the name of the game right now is protecting Will Levis. Like, yeah, you could have got Brock Bowers, you could have got Roma Dunze, you could have got a bevy of other offensive players. What good is having those guys if Will Levis can't get them the ball because he ain't got enough time to get them the ball?
And I'm sure they were.
Makes sense, right?
And I'm sure they were on the phone trying to trade back. Once Joe Alt was taken at 5, I imagine they were trying to move this pick, but I can't get my head around it.
But also, and in the second round, getting Devondre Smith, I think they're probably hoping that Johnny Newton fell to them. He's probably their number 1 guy to pick at tackle, but they want the second best guys.
I'll go a B minus for Tennessee Titans.
C+.
I actually, man, I love Devondre Sweat. He's a massive human being. Going to be a freaking double team stuffer, A gap guy. And,
he's good. He's gonna start his career on whatever that commissioner's list is, where he's gonna get like constant drug tests and it's just gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, be an adult.
Yeah, to yourself, son.
Yeah.
Be an adult. Don't complain about it. You did it, like as you said, you did it to yourself.
Yep, true. To the final team, the Washington Commanders. They got Jaden Daniels. They get Johnny Newton. They get the corner out of Michigan that one of my coworkers is really high on. This is an A draft for me. This is an A.
This is an A plus. This is an A plus. This is an A plus. This is what you do with all those surplus of picks you got from the Bears and whoever else that you made trades with. This is an A plus. Again, it was no secret that that Caleb Williams was going number 1. No secret that Jaden Daniels was going number 2. To get Jazon Newton where you got him at in the second round, still. To get Mike Sanders still where you got him in the second round, still. To get Ben Sinnott where you got him in the second round, still. To get Luke McCaffrey where you got him, still. Right? This A plus all the way around. It's a new era in Washington. And you got a grown ass man, the head coach, and Dan Quinn, second go round as a head coach for him. Don't blow it. Magic Johnson, Josh Harrison, the crew up at the ownership group, they want to see improvement right away, and they got the group to do it. A plus. Yeah.
This is an A for me too. A.
Yeah, I gotta give it an A. Like Ben Sinnott, he can play anywhere, like he's so versatile that he can play H-back, he can play in the slot, he can play tight end. And then the 7th round pick, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who the transfer from Ohio State, transferred to Notre Dame this past season. 7th round pick, but he's a 3rd, 4th round grade in my opinion. I like that pick. They're gonna love Dan Quinn's gonna love that kid. 7th round pick, he might play dividends for that defense sometime in the future. I don't know much about those other 2 guys though.
Since we at the end, what y'all grade the Bears draft?
A plus.
He gave him an A plus. I gave him an A. I forget who I only gave. I think I only gave A+ to like two teams.
I got the Pittsburgh Steelers an A+ and the Bears an A+.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give the Bears. I'm gonna give them a B+ for the simple fact that like they didn't have the draft capital.
I also didn't understand the punter pick, but I also still gave them an A+.
Well, no. So no, here's the thing. Did you know the Bears were last in that?
I don't care.
No,
hey, David,
it makes sense.
And I know special teams is an important part of the game, but it's just I can't get my head around it.
It makes sense. Like, see that's your problem. Your view on special teams is warped. That's the problem. You got to get out of that. So
it was like, hey, David, it's like the first time fantasy football guy. He drafts a defense in like the second or third round, third or fourth round. Drafting the kicker.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. This has been our NFL draft team grades. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. David Huffman, Israel Rivera, TJ Hopkins. Gentlemen, what do we do to hit the prime, my friends?
Bring the heat, baby. Go Pack.
Hell yeah, let's go. No, the Gold Lakers. We'll see you guys all here. See you guys all later. Have a good night. Peace out.